as comedians.
I think the best thing that ever happened to me was giving up hope, because when I got told in the first couple of years that I was too dirty.
When did you give up hope?
I gave up hope on money.
For what?
I gave up on money.
Oh, when?
In like the early 90s. Like when I first started, 93, 94, 95. And it became obvious to me that I couldn't get booked. And I thought, all right, well, I guess I'll be one of those comedians who doesn't make any money. I'll just, But I love being in that comedy club 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week, and just drinking beer and watching comedians and then waiting for comedians to get off stage so I could talk about comedy and go upstairs and talk about comedy and get some Coke and talk about more comedy and I
but faster.
Yeah. Exactly. And then
hurry this shit up.
But
another thing about the show is it's gonna work.
And then I just wanted to be around comedy, and I got better at it because I was around it so much. I mean, I always tell people who say, I want to be a comedian. Well, just marinate yourself in comedy. Just if you love it, just.
Here's your comedy biography, though. It's like, I'm Craig Gass. I went to a few open mics, and then George Carlin invited me to his trailer.
George Carlin invited you where?
Invited me to his trailer. And then I met Howard Stern, and then I just toured, with a bunch of people.
Do you know
and then I came back to Seattle and met, would talk to people now and then and take them in my limo to a Mariners game. That's how it works, right? That's how it works.
That's how everybody started.
Because of Craig Gass, we went
Me
to
too.
So wait a minute.
And it was one of the best moments of my life, I think, just because I was such a fan of Carlin.
Yeah.
But to meet him, and he was so nice, which I didn't expect that. I mean, a lot of these guys are really tiny, but I met a bunch of guys that I was like, oh, I'm a big fan. This guy was such a prick. There's a lot of guys that are just assholes, But he was so nice. I remember he actually, what do you do? And he was asking like, what kind of comedy do you do? And there was a comic that thought he'd try to be funny with Carlin. It was like the best. He says, you remember this?
I do.
He goes, the guy goes, the comic.
Was this in Tacoma?
Yeah.
In the tent?
Yeah, the Emerald Queen.
Holy shit, I was just talking about this the other day.
Yeah, and so we're leaving, and he goes, well, I gotta get ready for the show, guys. It's good meeting you. He shakes everybody's hand, gives us a hug, and like, he was a really cool guy. And then the one comic goes, hey, George, I think if you keep working on it, things will work out for you. Get some more stage time. Trying to be funny, and we're all like, kind of like, what are you doing? You're an idiot. But George is like, he's like, I'm sorry, what? I was saying that if you get more stage time, things will work out for you. Just doing a little joke. He's like, oh, well, your deadpan's fantastic. And it was not only did this guy look like an idiot, but Carlin kind of dumped on him without even dumping on him. It was fucking brilliant.
Yeah, George. I remember that night that same comedian said, I've always wanted to ask, and George was always really incredible to everyone. Like he always had that reputation for it. But whenever I would say, hey, this is my friend, he'd go like, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? Oh, you do stand-up? That's great. I love stand-up. So how long have you been doing it? And he would love to engage people. And the same comedian told me, I want to ask him about Saturday Night Live. It looked like he was high, and I want to ask him. And I go, I'm sure he'll be cool about it. I'm sure he'll be cool about it. And sure enough, he goes, but he asked it so bluntly. He said, I go, hey, this is Duane, this is so-and-so, and he goes, hey, nice to meet you. And the other comedian goes, I want to ask you a question, George. I was watching you hosted the first Saturday Night Live. Were you on cocaine? And he goes, let's see, that was nice. No, back then I was going through a really big mushroom period and doing a lot of mushrooms. And I kind of got over the whole cocaine thing. Then I got back into it. And then he gave us a whole timeline. But there was no shame in it. And it was like, wow. And, for the record.
But then at the end of that, after this great kind of opening himself up, letting us know exactly what he was on, the guy goes, yeah, but how high were you?
Yeah.
And the way it was like an inquisitive, it was like such a dick. Like, come on.
You were drooling and stuff. It was like you
7.2. I mean, what do you even have me answer that?
Yeah, and it was
so, did you learn to talk about drugs now like Carlin did? Or get more of a, not a...
No, and here's the funny thing is I just heard for the first time, like literally in the last few days, that there was this weird thing that I met George Carlin, and because of that, I got a career. But when I met George, I was doing comedy for 6 months.
That was a few minutes ago.
And,
That's a couple minutes ago.
Crowe just said that.
I'm going to insert a clip of it right now.
When I say things, they sound like they were said long ago.
Cocaine's a hell of a
If you actually rewind this tape, you can see it. But I didn't know that there was anybody. Like I thought it was just a cool thing. Like every time George would come into town, I would get a different collection of comedians, and I go, "Hey, you want to meet George?" And I go meet him. But I could never.
Who said no? Anybody?
Everyone was so eager. I mean, it was like we did one trip all the way out to Spokane. And that was one of the most fun trips. It was a 4.5 hours there, 4.5 hours back of me, Mike McCarthy, James Hennigan, Cliff Barnes. There's pictures of I just saw Hennigan has the picture, except Hennigan framed everybody out except for him and George. But I think Josh Wolf was on that trip too, and I think Tana.
Wow.
But a bunch of us went out, and every time he'd come out to the area, I'd always bring out comedians to see him. I could never ask him for help, and I could never talk to him about stand-up comedy. But I was looking for a father figure, and I would call him up and ask him questions about life and about God.
Sweet.
I would ask him to expand more on what I had heard him talk about on his HBO specials. And then I would just ask him sometimes really gay.
But he loved you. He would call and leave you messages just for no reason.
I'd save the messages. In fact, he left me a message before he died, and he said, "It's my birthday, and I want you to record a tape for me, and I want you to teach me how to do your impressions." Wow. And I was so nervous about having contact.
He liked impressionists because he asked me. That was my favorite thing was him saying, "What do you do, like your comedy?" And people say, "I do this kind of observational stuff. I do this. I do improv." And then he said, "What do you like to do?" And I said, "Well, I like to do impressions. I don't do them because it's kind of hacky. Everything's, but I don't think it's hacky." What's your best?
Well, his opener did impressions. All the time.
Dennis was
Dennis was with him for
fantastic.
20 years,
and he had me do my Carson for him, which was weird to do an impression for.
Wow!
And I had to do Carson.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he was like, "Well, it's good to have you in the tent."
Didn't
the last person to play here was Custard. I'm gonna try but it was like one of the. It was like to do that, and he laughed and hugged me, and that was like honestly, that to me was.
Over the years, I've met other.
moment of my comedy career, really.
Well,